My wife thinks I've been replaced. She sees me as a stranger with my own smile and doesn't know how to check if I'm me anymore. If that sounds ridiculous, I get it. I hear how it sounds. But stick with me, because I'm beginning to wonder, too. I reside in a little town in Kentucky, the kind you drive through accidentally and don't even realize until you've already gone by. My name's Tom, 34 years old. I've been an electrician my whole adult life, factory work at first. Then I hung out my own shingle and started taking calls around town. Wiring up ancient barns, fixing sputtering lights, crawling through crawl spaces full of dust and memories. It's quieter work than people think, just me and the hum of circuits, and I've always liked it. It felt like order, like translating confusion into click. I met Katherine when she was 24 and I was 28. She was the new third-grade teacher with a voice that could soothe a room full of wiggly kids in 2 sentences. She had this kindness that was never posed. If you misplaced a pen, she picked it up and somehow made you feel privileged to be helped. Everybody loved her immediately. Parents, kids, the guy who makes the ice cream cones on Main. I fell in love with her in the smallest moments. Morning coffee on the steps with dew still clinging to the grass. The way she'd close her eyes and breathe, as if the scent of wet grass was in the air, was a whole poem. Dime store movies on the couch with our toes together under the same blanket. Her basket of yarn on the coffee table, an unfinished hat for a kid who lost theirs and never even asked for one. She adored plain things and taught me how to pay attention too. We lived in a small house with a battered mailbox and a dog named Gus who insists on having the block. We had very little, but we had harmony, and I would have believed that was the richest we had to be. It was ours at night. I would tighten a loose drawer, dust a fan, read messages from people who needed a porch light checked out. She'd write out lesson plans, knitting in her lap if her mind was forced to do something mundane. We'd sit by the window and let the crickets provide our voice. We'd sometimes lie on the floor and debate baby names as if it were some game we could play before we'd have ever earned it. She was my anchor in a world that was always a bit loose. 2 months ago, give or take, a slow thing. Not like thunder. No moment of drama. Just a slow slide. She stopped sleeping at night. Not exactly insomnia, just like she didn't want to sleep. She'd stay up reading or just sitting, staring into the dark as though it would tell her something if she stared long enough. At breakfast, I would catch her looking at me over her cup. It was not unfriendly. It was watching. She would look away when I turned back. "Sorry," she'd say, so softly it was like a note. "I'm just so tired." The children at school are hyper. The evenings continued. She would go to bed and rise again. Quiet footsteps in the hall, the light beneath the door. I would question her if she were well, and she would tell me yes, but her yes was a borrowed word. She started having awful nightmares that she would not talk about. I convinced myself it would pass. I convinced myself of a lot of things. I finally asked what the dreams were about. One Saturday afternoon, sunbeams in through the blinds and dust in them hanging like tiny worlds. I made tea and sat on the rug, so we were at eye level. "Katie, what are the dreams about?" She held my eyes, and then she didn't. And then she did again. I noticed her lower lip tremble. The little tell I'd always loved about her because it meant she felt it all the way through. "There is a man in my dreams," she whispered, "and he resembles you." The phrases were so tightly controlled I wished I could enclose them in my hands. I automatically reached out to her, and she flinched back. Not melodramatic. More of a sudden withdrawal, like a hand withdrawing from a hot pan. It was small, and it was all of it. Then I started paying attention. She began taking pictures, to dust, and they did not seem to reappear. She had a spiral notebook on hand, and she closed it when I walked into the room. She'd go into the bathroom or the kitchen and close the door without saying anything. She'd wait in the hall late at night, and I could feel it. The force of her presence there, quiet, as if the house awaited breathing. Gus split his time between us like he was a small security guard. I tried to be patient. I offered to schedule a counseling session for both of us. She said to me she didn't feel comfortable. Those were her very words. "I don't feel comfortable being in a room with you right now." I nodded, though the words coursed through me like cold water. I said that I'd sleep on the couch if that simplified things any. She consented, and I did. If I stirred in the middle of the night, I'd see a flicker of the light at the bottom of the bedroom door, and I'd call out, "You okay?" just loudly enough. She'd mumble, "I'm awake," and we'd lie there, separated by wood and paint and trust. One night, I pretended to sleep on the couch. It wasn't a trick, really. I just wanted to find out what she needed. Her footsteps were soft. She loomed over me long enough to change the air. She then sat on the lip of the cushion, and the couch betrayed her with a faint creak. She inclined forward. I could feel the chill of her hands before they touched mine. She placed 2 fingers lightly upon my wrist and held them steady, counting, I think. Within seconds, she said quietly to the space between us, "Your pulse is faster than Tom's." My heart tried to justify her. She followed the line of my jaw with her thumb. "Tom had this little scar here," she breathed. "He got it where the river runs." She hesitated. I did not move. She turned and left, and the room seemed to have to rediscover how to stand. In the morning, during breakfast over eggs we hadn't eaten, she said to me, "Sometimes your voice sounds different, and you smell different." She spoke so quietly that my first impulse was to laugh, and I did, which I regret. "Katie, maybe you're just tired," I said, too lightly. "I know if I'm tired," she said. I also know my husband's laughter. It hit me, not just because it stung, but because small things started to make me feel out of balance. My favorite coffee mug was heavier. My toolbox handle felt unfamiliar in my grip. After I stepped out onto the porch and thought, this was where I belonged, and then immediately questioned why I'd spoken in past tense within my own head. She stopped asking me how my day was. I stopped knowing how to answer even if she did. The silence was bigger, and we navigated it as furniture in a room. One morning, when she left for school, I did what I was telling myself I wouldn't do. I went searching. I wasn't trying to catch her at anything. I simply wanted to know the shape of whatever we were standing in. I pulled sweaters down off the top shelf of the closet and found an old wooden box, the one her grandmother gave her. There was a thick notebook inside with her initials on it in neat loops that were starting to wobble. I shouldn't have read it. I did. "He sleeps," she wrote. "I stand next to the couch and watch. He is like Tom, but he is not Tom. Tom had a scar on his left hand from the river. The skin of this one is smooth. He says, 'I love you,' the same, but holds it otherwise. He used to hum while brewing coffee. He does not. Page after page, a private science experiment. Little things only a partner would catch. He chooses alternate jelly. He shifts his weight onto the other foot. He no longer finishes my sentences. If I say the word accident, his right hand twitches as if grabbing a memory that doesn't exist. And then there was a passage that near about killed me. If this is my brain messing with me, I'm sorry. I don't want to be scared. I just can't escape it. I don't feel safe at night. I've talked to Sheriff Martin for suggestions. He says we might be under stress. Maybe I am. But if the real Tom is somewhere else, what do I do with this one?" I set the notebook on my lap and could feel my heart thud inside me. The accident. Not that dramatic. Just a tumble off the wet rocks along the river last fall that knocked me goofy and gave me a concussion and bruised some ribs. I stayed in the hospital for a week because she wanted to stay with me. I remember her sitting in that stiff chair by the window, reading me absurd questionnaires from a newspaper just so the beeping equipment wouldn't sound so much like a soundtrack. I read the last entry. Her sentences had tilted, been pushed level. "I can't keep going like this. He carries Tom's smile and Tom's name, and it confuses my heart. I require help in order to feel safe. I want truth more than I want to be right." I shut the notebook and just sat there, breathing, not wanting to fall through the middle of my own life. And I must stop here, because if you're sitting on your phone at midnight and your chest is tightening, I want to say this out loud. If you've ever gone through something like this, I'd love to know what you think in the comments. And if this video resonated with you even a little bit, don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable that bell. I put the notebook on the table that day and waited for her return. She arrived home, dumped her bag, and regarded me like a shadow in a doorway during a storm. "What's that?" she asked, although she knew. "I read it," I said. "Sorry, I shouldn't have, but I have to know. I want you to be safe." She crept in closer, then sat down between us with a chair as if it was something. "So what did you decide?" she asked. "That I need a nap? That I'm dreaming this?" "No," I said to her, and it startled me because it felt like the reply out of my very bones. "I saw that you were scared, and that I love you, and that I've been attempting to reason you out of something instead of standing alongside you in it." She swallowed. "You tell me everything that is correct," she whispered. "That's why it is so puzzling." "I remember everything," I said to him, and I recited it, not in my defense, but like lighting candles. Meeting at the Festival of the Pumpkin, a foam cup of apple cider, our wedding candle that kept getting blown out and causing us to laugh too hard to stay solemn. The cheapo show you cried over because the dog was better than that, the names we tried on like hats. "I remember it like it's mine because it is," I said to her, and even as I said the words, I felt how much I wanted her to believe me because I was struggling to believe me myself. She took a step back, hands bunched into fists around the chair's back. "I called Martin," she said. "He's visiting tomorrow morning. I require help. Not because you're unfriendly. You're not. But because my chest hurts all the time and I'm unable to teach and cook and sleep with this question in my mind about whom I'm speaking." "All right," I said. "All right." The word was a bridge structuring under my feet. "I can have one night somewhere other than here. Space you. I'll get a bag." I'll sleep on a friend's couch. I'll call a doctor. I'll do whatever makes this better, even if better is slow. My phone buzzed. Sheriff Martin, cool as always. Tom, you two okay? Katherine called a while back, he said. She said things didn't seem quite right at home. Want me to swing by tomorrow? Please, I said. Good, he said. Hey, stop by my place sometime. Sit out in the back. Smoke a couple of cigars from a friend. I don't smoke, I said reflexively. He paused. I know, he said, as though checking something in the air. We'll have lemonade then. I stood in our bedroom later and jammed clothes into a duffel. I grabbed that picture of the two of us at the lake, the one where we're squinting in the sun and her arms are around me like it's the most normal thing. I left the following message on the counter. I'm going to leave you alone. I'm going to see a doctor. I'm going to talk to someone. I love you. You don't need to make any decisions tonight. I gazed at Gus, who sported that look of concerned dog as if he could report the entire incident himself, if only he had thumbs. Keep an eye on her, I told him. He set his chin on my knee, and I felt that old solid steady one time again. I drove places and no places. It's a small town thing. You drive back and forth around the streets in the way you would draw a picture, and the picture would be you. At midnight, my chest shut up. It wasn't scary yet, only pressure. I breathed, and it didn't quite catch. By 1 a.m., it did. I pulled over at urgent care because it was lighted up inside, and because I needed someone else to tell me that it was going to be okay. They tried me out and told me what many of you probably already know. Every now and then the body has its own panic response. It does not need your permission. A nurse wrapped me in a warm blanket and told me to remain still, and I did. And for the first time in weeks, my head did not feel as though it were running on a treadmill with my feet being held back. Finally, the doctor asked what had happened in the accident. By the river, he read from the chart, as if we were flipping to a chapter. You were here a while afterward. Concussion, ribs. Your wife visited with you as much as she was able. I closed my eyes and remembered something that wasn't so much memory as home movie. Katherine sitting in that plastic chair reading a recipe out loud just to watch me smile. Me telling the stupid story about the gash on my hand from years ago and making it more because it was easier to make it into a story than into an embarrassment. I inspected my left hand under the hospital fluorescence. Smooth. I turned it. There, at some angle, a small white half moon below the base of my thumb. Maybe a scar. Maybe a fold. Maybe it's always been there, and we learned to forget how to look. Sheriff Martin came by in the morning. He hung his hat on the back of the chair and leaned against the doorframe like a man who'd leaned in a great many doorframes and heard both worse and better. I told him the truth, to him about the notebook, about the insomnia, about the way we both felt. He nodded along, solid. You got someplace to stay for a little while? He asked. Yeah, I said. Friend of mine's got a room over his garage. Good, he said. Let it ride for a couple of days. I'll check in on Katherine. I'll get her some support at school. He paused, regarding me as if he were making sure I was standing upright. Folks get scared when things change, he said. It doesn't always mean what they think it does. Thanks, I said. He grinned. You sure you don't smoke? He asked, teasing but not entirely. I laughed, surprised. Honestly, I don't know anymore, I said. Maybe I used to. Maybe I'm trying not to. Maybe both. He patted the door. Lemonade, then, he said once more. Anytime. I stood outside the tiny mirror in the corner after he closed the door. I looked beat. The kind of beat sleep can't fix. There were gray hairs in my beard I swear didn't appear last summer. My eyes were the same, though. Or not the same. Older, maybe. Softer in places. Sharper in others. The left hand. The near scar. The twitch of my right fingers when I have a hard time remembering something exactly. These are small things that hold big questions. I looked at myself and allowed a soft truth to rise. I am me. I'm not exactly the me I was. And maybe those two statements can stand together without canceling each other out. This is what the last couple of weeks taught me the hard way. People do change. Sometimes a little. Sometimes enough that people who care about them notice and feel a little lost. That doesn't make anyone a monster. Brains do strange gymnastics under pressure. The stories they tell are to keep us safe, even when sometimes they lead us to the incorrect door. You don't combat fear by arguing with it. You walk with it until it's ready to sit. I paid rent on the little room over my friend Mark's garage. He left a clean set of sheets on the bed and a sticky note that said, snacks in the cabinet, because he's that kind of guy. I posted a picture of the sunrise from the back porch steps to Katherine. She posted a picture of Gus with the message, he's been very busy. The humor in that little sentence was like an olive branch. We started to view ourselves individually. Me talking to a counselor about the accident and what it had done for me. Her talking to someone about the way in which her fear took up space in her chest. We are not trying to put labels on each other. We are trying to label feelings so we can fold them up and put them where they are supposed to be. Sometimes I drive out to the river bend. I sit atop my truck's hood and allow the water to shape its slow, steady curves. I hold up my hand against the sun and look for that faint little line. There are days when I see it. There are days when I don't. On days when I don't, I am reminded that evidence is a hungry creature that will never be content with something more than you can provide. And identity, the true kind, is in how you present yourself. It's in dropping off groceries when you hadn't been asked, in turning off a breaker before someone is shocked, in knowing how someone likes their pancakes, in waiting outside a door your whole heart longs to go through, and waiting until you're invited in. Do I think my wife will come around? I think she already is, in small ways. I bumped into her on the sidewalk near the school last Friday. She handed me a cardboard box full of construction paper and said, "I'm clearing out the art closet," and we both laughed about glitter being for life. She stood there, vision clear, and told me, "Thank you for respecting my space." I replied, "Thank you for telling me what you needed." And then we both took the box and walked it out to her car, and it came easy for the first time in quite a while. If she asks me to her place next week, I'll go slow. If she requires time, I'll give it. If the person I am now is different enough that we must relearn each other, then that is the homework. We'll do flashcards. We'll take retakes. We'll allow the dog to be TA. I am still standing in front of the mirror some mornings searching for differences. I am still waking up and stretching out my arm to where she used to be. I am still catching myself about to say, "I don't smoke," just to respond, and then laughing because memory is a slippery slope and it is okay to have crooked lines for everything. And if you're hearing this, late at night, in your own kitchen light, wondering who you are to the people that love you, I'm not going to tie this all up in a perfect bow. There are going to be some days that are going to be so normal, you're going to forget there was ever a strange chapter. There will be some who are mean in a way that will have you running out into cold air that wakes you up inside and out. Either one, you don't have to do the whole thing alone. Call a friend. Call a sheriff, if it is your little burg. Call a counselor. Write a note on a countertop that says, "I'll give you space," and do it. I'm me. That's the quiet truth I'm building on. Not loud, not flashy, just steady. And if the person who knows me best has to meet me again for the first time, we can do that. We've always been pretty good at small beginnings. I walked by our house one night recently, and the crickets were heating up, and the porch light I installed 2 summers ago turned on with that little click I've learned by heart. It was like the house was saying to itself, "I remember you," and that will have to suffice for now.